freelance? Well, as a illustrator, we are all, I suppose, freelancers, aren't we? You know,
Yes, we are.
That's the nature. So, I mean, this is just maybe, 4 helpful tips, I think, to being freelance as an illustrator. And the first thing I would say is managing your time. And by that, I mean have a working day, so that...
So kind of like a schedule.
Absolutely.
Like a full day schedule.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you need to sort of overdo this too much, but, have a start time.
Well, it's good to, have a start and a finish to it.
And an end time. Yeah, absolutely. Now, that doesn't have to be, I mean, that sounds very sort of, overly, organised, but it will help you, I think, just order your day and also order your projects. So if you start at 9 o'clock and say that, you can do, if you're a morning person, you can work through till midday. That gives you a number of hours that you can just sort of
Well,
do.
and that is the benefit of being freelance. You get to choose your hours, so you can kind of make them fit to your lifestyle or what you want to do and how you like to work. And
but part of the danger in some ways is that you wake up one morning and go, well, I don't feel like working today, and that's fine. That's part of being freelance. But equally, sometimes if you don't impose a discipline on yourself, then you won't get anything done. And I think it's really important to say, I am an illustrator, therefore I need to illustrate. And I will illustrate between this time and this time.
Well, I think that's the biggest thing that helped me, actually, and the biggest change I made last year, kind of creating a time frame for myself during the week, weekday hours.
Yes.
Have weekends off. Work, this time till this time, and then it makes you appreciate the time that you have off or you have free, and then you're ready to get back to work. You're like, completely. This is what I want to do, and
it does focus your attention. And you're right.
And it doesn't have to be really strict or regimented. I guess it is. You can still have freedom within that, but to have like a sense of purpose that you're going to.
Yes, get into the habit.
Yeah,
and that's a really useful way of sort of defining yourself as freelance. I'm working now, and now I'm not working.
Yeah.
And making sure you have that start time, end time. And I would say on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Sort of, have
definitely.
a time when you're working. So, number 2, and this might sound, a little bit obvious, but keep busy. And I, as a freelance, we've hit upon this with time management. Being freelance, you might not actually have someone knocking on your door or phoning you up saying, here is a job, I want you to do it.
Yeah, there's lots of in-between time, in between jobs, or waiting to hear back from something, or, you haven't got anything planned.
Exactly.
In that sense.
So what I would say is have some projects planned. Now, they can be all sorts of things. Now, Katie, I know you've planned some projects. Tell me about a few of your projects.
Well, I like to do things, again, this is like a self-initiated thing that I do for Big Cartel, and that's kind of my way of like generating artwork and things, again, to keep me busy during those like kind of downtime periods. And I just, each month I plan a kind of series of artworks, basically.
Yeah.
And that's really based around like what I like to draw and how I'm feeling that month and what I want to put out there and stuff. So
good. Okay.
It's kind of ranges of things, really.
Yeah. Well, I like that. So have a list, I would say, of planned projects. There can be posters. There can be maybe illustrations to some stories you've enjoyed. It could be a series of linked pictures of some sort. The stuff that you get in things like Inktober or prompts like that. But nobody will have asked you for these. These are self-planned projects. But what you're doing within your time management, you are saying, right, today nobody has asked me to do this. I'm not being paid necessarily. This is my self-planned project. But I am working. I am an illustrator who is working on something.
It's all part of it. And I guess
Absolutely.
that's like, like you mentioned, Inktober or like other things, kind of like challenge, like illustration challenges or stuff like that. Or even, like setting up a big cartel. I guess Patreon is also part of that. You know, you're producing content, you're making something, you're sharing something.
And you're keeping busy. You know, and keeping busy is part of that self-identifying as an illustrator, as someone who is working, who is being freelance. And I think that's really important. I think the third tip here is your workplace. And I think it's really important to set up a workstation of some sort. Now, whether that's, whether that's your laptop linked, with a printer on a table, whether that is, an easel of some sort, or, maybe you work flat, maybe you have, a desk with places to sort of keep things, whatever it is, it's a sort of desktop.
I think
at its most simple.
An environment to get you into work mode, basically.
Exactly. It can be a corner of a bedroom. It can be its own dedicated room if you're lucky enough to have one, or it can be a studio space, where you work with other people. But it's important that sort of mentally you have this place where you go to, the chair you sit in, the desk you have where you've got your things organised and around you. You might have a pin board for pinning up sort of, lists and projects and work and stuff. This is, in a sense, where you are at work. So you're managing your time, you're keeping busy, but this is the place where you actually do these things. As opposed to, I remember sort of working in offices and things when they came into this notion of sort of hot desking where you just sit at any desk. It's different, I think, from sitting in a Starbucks or a, place. That's a nice place to go when you're just thinking about things, but that's no replacement for a dedicated workplace, wherever that might be. So if you can set up one of those, you're well on the way to working as a freelance.
Yeah, just gets you in the zone.
Oh, completely. That, and again, all these things are interlinked. And finally, I would say, I'm going to call this self-promotion. And sometimes this sounds, a little either very obvious or a little bit cheesy or a little bit sort of awkward to do.
But it is part of it.
It's part of it, and it doesn't have to be any of those things.
Yeah.
So a few things I would say is certainly social media. And I think as a freelance illustrator, I think it's fairly important to be able to post the work you do on social media so that people can see what you're doing. Now, whether you post that up on a weekly basis, whether you post it up on a daily basis,
it doesn't have to
up
be
to you.
all the time. But again, it's quite interesting. Like it's setting like a context for your work. So even if having a social media page can get you to do some work because you want to show it, I think that's always like a bonus. You don't have to, it doesn't have to always be for the Instagram, but it's quite nice
and I
doing
would say
stuff for it.
This idea of using social media as promotion is a useful one, because each of these platforms, and we could talk at greater length about this, and we might do a tutorial just on this, but Instagram is where you can post up artwork. You don't have to talk about it too much. Twitter is where you can tell people what you're doing. I am at this bookshop, or I am at this location doing something. Facebook is where you can gather up a set of things. You can diarise. You can, say, I'm an illustrator, I'm working in this way. TikTok is where you can actually demonstrate what you're doing. You can do little live draw mini films where you draw something or you take a little selfie or something. So each of these are slightly different in the way used, but they all say, I am a freelance, I'm an illustrator, here is my work, and you can see the work. And finally, I would say, again, part of self-promotion is always look out for collaborations. Talk to writers, actors, filmmakers. And when I say all these things, these could be friends, these could be people who are all going on their own journey of being freelancers. But collaboratively, you can provide illustrations, drawings. If there's a writer, you can collaborate on what they're writing. You can collaborate on the story. If they're actors, maybe you can illustrate performances. If they're filmmakers, you can get together and make little self-promotional films with them. These are all ways in which you, as a freelance, can find a context in which to work.
Yeah.
So I hope that's been useful. Some tips on being freelance.